All right, plenty to talk about. Joining us, great pleasure, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz, as always, sir, welcome. We have a lot to talk about, but let me start. Activist judges who think they are president, driving everybody crazy, driving me stark raving mad, driving Newt Gingrich stark raving mad, and they're still at it, Senator Cruz, and something's got to be done. What you thinking here? What you going to do about it?
Well, it is an absolute abuse of power, and this is the second phase of lawfare. We saw during the last 4 years Democrat prosecutors going after and indicting Donald Trump not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 separate times, trying to use law enforcement to prevent the American people from re-electing President Trump. That obviously didn't succeed. Now what we're seeing is every day President Trump and the Trump administration are being sued by Democrat state attorneys general, by left-wing activist groups, and they're going out and forum shopping. They're seeking the most radical left-wing judges who are issuing nationwide injunctions that are an absolute abuse of power. Any injunction should cover the parties to a case and not people who are not parties to the case. And I will tell you, the volume of it is truly unprecedented. So in the first 2 months of the Trump administration, we have seen 37 nationwide injunctions issued against the Trump administration. That is more than the entirety, both terms of George W. Bush, both terms of Barack Obama, and Joe Biden's 4 years. All of those added together, the first 2 months of Trump have more nationwide injunctions. This is left-wing activists wearing robes trying to seize policy making from the elected president of the United States. It's wholly illegitimate.
So it is lawfare. It is weaponization. Yep. It is the Democrats' kind of last stand. I mean, between activist judges and throwing Molotov cocktails at Elon Musk's Teslas, that's the Democratic Party, and that sure ain't much. The question I have, Senator, because I agree with you wholeheartedly, what can you do about it? There's a bill in the House. Is there a companion bill? I think Mr. Grassley and Mr. Hawley.
Yes.
Is there an update on any of this?
So Chuck Grassley has a bill to limit the jurisdiction to make clear that one single district judge doesn't have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions. I'm a co-sponsor of that bill. I strongly support it. Here's the problem. To pass it in the Senate takes 60 votes. That would mean we would need at least 7 Democrats. No Democrat is going to go along with it. The other remedy that is in the Constitution is impeachment. We're seeing the House discussing the possibility of impeachment. To impeach a judge, which is to bring charges against a judge, takes a majority in the House. So conceivably, if 218 House members voted to impeach, they could impeach one of these activist judges. But the problem, of course, is after impeachment, it goes to the Senate for the trial, and it takes 2/3 of the Senate under the Constitution to convict, and not a single Democrat would vote to convict, which means the real remedy here is the appellate process, the courts of appeals, and the Supreme Court reining in this lawfare and this abuse of power. That's what I very, very much hope that we see.
I just wondered, Senator, you were talking about, you need stop a filibuster and this. Hadn't Cory Booker stopped? I mean, has he finally stopped? Well, last I heard, he has stopped. That was a joke. Maybe I shouldn't have said it, but I don't know. I never understood.
He has, and I got to say, Cory Booker broke my record. He went 25 hours. He broke my record of 21 hours. I was kind of grumpy about that. I tweeted moments before he broke my record. I said I'm contemplating going and pulling the fire alarm with a hat tip to Jamal Bowman, but I didn't actually do that.
All right. I didn't mean to open up a sore wound. I got it. Let's talk to some money issues. I forget which TV host told you several months ago it was going to be one big, beautiful bill, but that host seems to have had the inside line on that. Now, Senator.
And Larry, has that one big, beautiful bill passed yet?
Well, you all better get through the resolution this week. Otherwise, all hell's going to break loose.
We will. The Senate will, and we'll get it done. I think the challenge with one big, beautiful bill is it's going to prove really hard to get 218 in the House. I believe we will get there eventually, but I think 2 bills would have been more effective. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We got to deliver results. We got to secure the border. We got to rebuild the military. We got to unleash energy, and we have to extend the tax cuts and get the economy roaring back.
Now, on the tax cuts, I don't know if you heard any of the show. Because of Mr. Trump's reciprocity policy that he announced yesterday, the White House is saying there could be $600 billion revenues from the tariffs. I am proposing that those revenues be put into the budget resolution and the reconciliation bill, and that you cut taxes even more to help the middle class who have been shouldering the burden of falling real wages for about 25 years because of unfair and unjust trading practices. If you have $600 billion, Senator, if those are the estimates, I mean, out 10 years is a gigantic number. We need a fresh round. You need tax cuts, middle class tax cuts, corporate tax cuts. I mean, I'm calling it a tariff dividend for taxpayers. What do you think? I want you to carry this ball for me.
So Larry, you know I'm always in favor of more tax cuts and bigger tax cuts. And I'm fighting to make this tax cut as big and bold as possible. Look, I think it is a mistake to assume that we will have high tariffs in perpetuity. I don't think that would be good economic policy. I am not a fan of tariffs. And the announcement yesterday, look, time is going to tell in the next month or 2 or 3 what happens. If the result of yesterday's announcement is a lot of our trading partners across the globe dramatically reduce the tariffs they charge on U.S. goods and services, and the consequence of that is the U.S. government dramatically cuts the tariffs that were announced yesterday, that would be a great outcome. That would be good for America. If the result is our trading partners jack up their tariffs and we have high tariffs everywhere, I think that is a bad outcome for America. Tariffs are a tax on consumers, and I'm not a fan of jacking up taxes on American consumers. So my hope is these tariffs are short-lived and they serve as leverage to lower tariffs across the globe.
So you don't want to put any more money, you want to hand any money over to the consumers. The workforce has been hurt by these unfair trading practices.
Cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes. I agree with you. I don't know that you could get too aggressive for me in cutting taxes. I just don't want to simultaneously embrace raising taxes on consumers. Right. And so I like half of your idea, but not necessarily the other half.
All right, half ain't bad. Senator Ted Cruz, thank you ever so much, sir. We appreciate it. Talk soon.
Thanks, Larry.
All right, folks.